Good evening. Welcome to the channel. And today we're going to be looking at what is a fairly, it's a song I released on iTunes, an instrumental composition that I released a long time ago. Not that long ago, actually. I think earlier this year. But it's based on this original synth idea. So I released two versions of it. And one was just purely electronic. And the other one was like a more orchestrated version of it. And I wanted to kind of take you through the process of that. Please like and subscribe to the channel again, or buy me a cup of coffee or tea, whatever you prefer. And here we go. So this is kind of the original idea. And again, you can find this on Apple Music, Spotify, but here we go. And there's kind of a squishy synth in there. So this is a derivation of the synth version I released. The synth version I released is slightly different than this, but it's essentially the same idea, and it's very repetitive in nature. And so when you're dealing with something that's repetitive and you want to change the dynamics of it, a really quick and easy way to do that is to Midi remap. And this track originally was maybe, I don't know, maybe 15 tracks, and then I went a little crazy. And I, of course, didn't label anything because I don't sometimes when I'm working at home and I'm being impulsive. But I wanted to make this pretty large piece. I wanted to make it bigger, actually, than what it was. And so I wanted to add some strings to it. And so let's take a listen to those. So let's de-solo everything and go back to this part. So we'll go back to the beginning here. I wanted to add some kind of orchestral stuff to it. And some hybrid tools here. Kind of a drone. Kind of this idea. I also wanted to add some ethnic instrumentation to it. So I love using the cymbalum. And so I wanted to add that. It's just an interesting timbre to use. Some bell samples. Again, repetitive structure, not very complicated. Very simple ostinato. Felt piano. You know what? Same idea, basically. You know, keeping it really simple, not too complex, but layering and really kind of working through that process, layering and developing and mixing as I go. And then an omnispheres sort of selection here. And so the main omnispheres synths, where I'm using a lot of like the Oberheim synth ideas, you know, kind of creating layers in that way, then became augmented with all the other orchestral strings I later added. So In terms of the actual project, integration of, Vienna Ensemble, obviously, and then we integrate Mir into that equation. And one of the halls I really, really like using in Mir is the synchron stage, because it's got a nice bright sound, but it also doesn't sound too big, but it also doesn't sound too small. So if you're trying to get these really articulated parts to sort of poke through the mix, this is a really good hall for that. And so if we, just take a listen, I think, to the Vienna stuff. So we have the Vienna here. So the Vienna right here. Put the Vienna together with the omnispheres. Nice kind of rich sound coming through. So building the arrangement, adding different layers in, and then ultimately playing the whole piece with all these new parts that were added. So the original piece, again, is just that sort of omnispheres Jupiter synth idea, but then we add all the other parts and it sounds like this. And so, the piece kind of goes on, and you can hear the mastered version of it on Spotify and iTunes. But again, using a lot of really great emulations, there were a few things I wanted to really kind of bring out, especially for getting a nice vintage kind of sound. And one is this DBX 160 compressor limiter emulation. This thing just sounds great, especially on sort of vintage synth things. Also, the API Waves plugins are also really, really good too. And these are things that all add a bit of authenticity to this. Now, in the final version, I will go in and, either send it to the mastering engineer or I'll master it myself. This particular one I did master myself, and I never master in the, in the session I'm actually working in. This goes into a different session where I can really focus on the actual mix and not, sort of, so the two mix is already done and I'm in there kind of working with the mastering software to get it to sort of, be in terms of loudness and brightness and imaging and all that the way I want it to be. So this is the final session though. And I think it's important to realize that complexity can be brought to you in one of two ways. It can be brought to you in terms of musical composition, which this is not, or in terms of arrangement and remapping, in terms of how you're using your virtual instruments, which this piece actually is. So again, this is I think a fairly good example of how effective remapping can be used on simple sort of structures. And that's it. So back we go to the YouTube channel. Now, if you're not subscribed, please do. I'm trying to grow the channel. If you have kind of recommendations or thoughts or ideas about what I should do, please let me know. And have a great night.